When we think of dinosaurs, we naturally picture the end of their story. We see them as the undisputed, massive rulers of prehistoric Earth, stomping across the landscape without a rival in sight. For decades, the standard scientific assumption was that early dinosaurs started as simple, sharp-toothed carnivores that slowly grew in size and strength over millions of years. But if we travel back 245 million years to the Middle Triassic period, we find a completely different situation. The dinosaur family tree was actually a collection of small underdogs desperately trying to scrape by. These early ancestors spent their days hiding in the shadows of gigantic land-dwelling crocodiles. To survive that kind of intense ecological pressure, they had to experiment with their biology and behavior to avoid being wiped out. If we want to understand how they eventually engineered a 160 million year global takeover, we have to look at how they survived when they were at the very bottom of the food chain. Our first stop is ancient Tanzania, 245 million years ago, where we meet Asilisaurus. It belongs to a group of reptiles called silosaurids. Silosaurids are a group of Triassic reptiles that are the closest known relatives to true dinosaurs, making Asilisaurus essentially the dinosaur's older cousin. If you saw one in the wild, you might mistake it for a strange, hairless dog. It was roughly the size of a Labrador retriever, weighing anywhere from 20 to 60 pounds. Those slender limbs were tucked directly underneath its body, giving it the agility to sprint away from predators. Its strangest feature was its head. At the end of a relatively long neck, its lower jaw tipped into a small beak. Right behind that beak, its jaws were lined with peg-like, leaf-shaped teeth. Paleontologists long assumed the earliest dinosaur relatives were strict meat-eaters, but those specific teeth were built perfectly for snipping off leaves and ferns. Millions of years before the giant, long-necked herbivores existed, the dinosaur lineage was already testing out plant-based diets. When scientists officially described the bones in 2010, they uncovered the remains of at least 14 different individuals packed closely together in the rock. This strongly suggests they lived and grazed in herds. Asilisaurus shows us that early dinosaur relatives survived by quickly adapting to unexploited ecological niches. Instead of trying to outmuscle the massive carnivores of their day, they simply found a different menu. Let's move our timeline forward to 231 million years ago. The landscape shifts to the arid, dangerous red rock formations of what is now the Valley of the Moon in ancient Argentina. This is where we meet Herrerasaurus. While the earliest Spinosaur ancestors weighed a measly 25 pounds, this creature was a 500-pound heavyweight. It stretched 20 feet long, balancing perfectly on two powerful hind legs. These massive bones were first spotted weathering out of the rocks in 1959 by a local goat herder named Victorino Herrera, whom the dinosaur is now named after. In 1988, an expedition unearthed a nearly complete skull that revealed a specialized, double-hinged lower jaw. This specialized joint allowed the predator to clamp down and then flex its mouth outward to swallow massive chunks of meat from its prey, which likely included smaller plant-eating reptiles known as rhynchosaurs. Rhynchosaurs were stocky, herbivorous reptiles known for their specialized beak-like snouts. Up front, it packed secondary weapons. It had surprisingly long arms that ended in hands with 3 distinct fingers, each tipped with a razor-sharp, hooked claw, designed for grasping and holding on to struggling animals. With its bipedal stance, its serrated teeth, and specialized grasping hands, Herrerasaurus shares the same physical architecture that defined the giant carnivores of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. With its muscular legs and deadly claws, Herrerasaurus was a highly capable pursuit predator, stalking effectively through the dense Triassic woods. But it shared this territory with creatures called Rauisuchians. Rauisuchians were a group of large, predatory reptiles related to modern crocodiles that walked on upright, pillar-like legs. If an adult Herrerasaurus crossed paths with a fully grown Rauisuchian, our apex dinosaur was immediately downgraded to prey. To survive the encounter, it had to rely entirely on its superior agility and speed to escape. Dinosaurs were not born as the kings of the earth. Even their most terrifying early predators were secondary to the true crocodilian rulers of the Triassic period. In the Middle Triassic, the dinosaur lineage was already testing different survival strategies simultaneously. balancing plant-based diets and social grazing against bipedalism and high-speed predation. The intense ecological pressure of living alongside giant crocodilian predators gave them no other choice. It forced a phase of rapid diversification and genetic trial and error. That grueling trial period is exactly what saved them. Because they had already diversified so heavily, they were perfectly positioned to survive and adapt when the environment finally shifted and the giant crocodiles began to die out. The eventual 160 million-year global reign of the dinosaurs was entirely dependent on the genetic groundwork laid down during the Triassic period. True evolutionary dominance is rarely granted overnight. It is built slowly, stubbornly, and quietly in the dangerous shadows.